Hello, everybody, and welcome to ABM Answered, the quickfire demand generation and ABM video series. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Alex Carter, who is a technically gifted, dare I say, demand gen hero. Spent the last few years in the finance space, and I think you were big on ads within that. I think you were doing pretty well there. He has a background in both B2B and B2C marketing, and to be honest, in my time of need, tremendously helped me with a bit of, well, dare I say, mentorship. So yeah, I'm excited to have Alex on. Alex, do you want to give do yourself some justice here? I don't know, give a bit of background about your experience.
Yeah, so I don't know. I've been doing, marketing for well over 10 years now, and I've gotten to work in both large companies as well as startups and rapidly scaling companies. In the past few years, I've had a lot of fun just working with startups and helping them come up with a solid marketing plan to hit their immediate goals, as well as grow with the business and lay a solid foundation to build upon. So that's been a lot of fun the past few years.
Well, yeah, balancing expectations is one of the hardest things to do in marketing. So I don't envy you there. But to run you and the viewers again through the rules, Alex in this case will be given a set of questions to respond to, typically all about account-based marketing and demand generation. And in this case, maybe we'll try and spruce it up with making it a bit more finance specific. The questions have come from or been adapted based on the data we collected at Mixed Reality Rooms, where over 1,000 marketers have gone through and stated what their biggest headaches are. But in recent episodes, what we've started to do is incorporate previous guest questions as well. So I will pull up question one. Alex, you ready?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Cool, nice. We need some sound effects now as well, don't we, to just build the tension. So problem one that came in, and it's a common problem, is just knowing when to start. So my question to you is when implementing kind of a demand gen program, let's say you're first in through the door. What do those first steps look like? So we close that. Apologies. What do those first steps look like? What goals are important to align on? And I guess in terms of do you have a pilot, a timeline of when you would tell leadership how quickly you'd start seeing results?
So is it more of a question of when to start demand gen marketing, or how to start it?
That would, kind of both. More how, but I think the when is actually even more important.
Okay. Well, I think it's really important to have a product market fit. There should be a really clear solution, a reason why people value it, and kind of some consistent language that's been used to position it. So whether you're starting with founder-led sales or you've got a small sales team that's leading with it, making sure their talk track is really dialed in and resonating with the people that are hearing it, because you don't want to start investing heavily in marketing if you're still trying to figure out, where your place is and what customers value with the solution. So that's a mix of talking with current customers as well as figuring out what the prospects are anchoring on and what they really enjoy from the solution. When that's all dialed in a little better, then it's a lot easier to start the demand gen side. First off, if you're recording calls, whoever's coming on board can listen to the sales conversations. They can hear from the prospects as well as the customers, what they value, what the benefits are of the solution, and kind of get away from just kind of touting features and, all the capabilities of something, really diving into what made someone purchase this, how are they looking at it such that they can't live without it? And when you get some of those insights, then it's much easier to start figuring out what to do in terms of demand gen. But in terms of where to start over there, really exciting, but it's probably best to start with a really good audit of what does the buyer journey look like? What is being done from a marketing perspective, if anything? And really understanding what all is available to support advertising as well as content throughout someone's buying journey. If you're dealing with things that have a long sales cycle, you need a lot to really nurture them along and talk to them until they're ready to do the purchase. But if it's a shorter time frame, you can be a bit more aggressive with the kind of the buy now, take action now. I guess it depends on the product and the price point. But yeah, understanding what all is there and making sure that you're tracking it correctly. A lot of campaign decisions can be made poorly if you're just leaning on your gut and a couple high level stats of maybe just even the ad performance. You really need a good understanding of what is feeding the CRM, how are different prospects going through a buying journey. and to be able to really track it well so that you can do reporting on it and make, better decisions and really start honing in on the tactics that are working. As well as kind of stepping away from the ones that, are not causing any movement within the sales funnel, or maybe they're doing really well from an ad perspective, but then nothing happens after it. So if you can't track it throughout that whole journey, then you're really only getting part of the view. And with part of the view, you don't make good decisions. So
you're answering the next question. This is good. This is good though. It's really refreshing as well that you're one of the marketers. I'm seeing on LinkedIn so many like consultants flooding LinkedIn with, it's never too early to start marketing and stuff. But like from a rational point of view, there is like, you need to like marketing the way I see it is like fuel on the fire, right? Like once you got something going, we'll blow it up rather than, I guess there is the case of like, if, you've got a vision, you could try and do some thought leadership. But again, that thought leadership without any validation that what you've got actually makes sense is just, you're shooting at blind, I guess.
I mean, the thought leadership part of it is, I mean, that's a type of marketing. It's, it's just brand building and leaning more on the content side. I guess it really comes down to like, probably don't spend a lot of ad dollars until you figured out your message and where you stand in the market. And to figure that out, you can lean on sales as well as your founder, and you can find that space, without having to invest a lot in ad dollars. If you've got, an overflowing wallet and the resources to spend some ad money on it, like you can definitely find that language quicker. It's going to cost more, but I guess the more practical and, fiscally responsible way is to figure that out before dumping ad dollars into it.
For sure. Yeah. I think you'd be in a dream situation if that was the case. Problem 2 was more of a tactic question. It's like finding innovative ways to break through the noise on a budget. So I think this is just, talking about the saturation of kind of this digital space right now. But have you kind of got, maybe particularly within the finance space, maybe not, from your experience, have you found any kind of like hacky ways to break through the noise? I know you're big on ads. Was there anything in particular there?
I mean, I guess it kind of depends on what ad and, where you're trying to break through. I mean, from like a social ad perspective, the less it looks like an ad and the more it looks like content that somebody would want to read within their feed, I think you have a better chance there. And if you are going to put ads in front of people, like if it's on a particularly boring topic that people don't really want to talk about, like on their day-to-day, if they're like, so at my last role, no one really wanted to talk about bookkeeping. They wanted to talk about their business. So just finding silly ways to kind of, not just being all value driven or like, here's what we saw with this customer, doing something kind of silly, that, kind of stood out within amongst the LinkedIn feed that, that kind of works. It's hard to break through the noise though, because it's really, I mean, the easy thing is to try and like lean on some validation kind of ads, like showing results you had with case studies or talking about time savings or money savings, things like that. And those all sound good in theory, but when you're scrolling really fast or it doesn't really stand out that much, it's like, oh, cool, but not really. It doesn't get people curious as to what you're doing. I think the best way to stand out is, have a unique perspective, give information that's helpful to your target audience, and, be consistent with it, actively participate on the platforms that you choose to participate on. If resources are kind of stretched thin and you can't participate on every platform and every channel, then like really put in on a couple and develop a presence there. And through, repetition, consistency, you start to get noticed by people. But there's not really there's not really a secret formula. It's, you know a great ad when you see it. But you're going to scroll past you're probably going to scroll past like 15 bad ads before you see one that you actually pause on and you say, oh, that's pretty good. So it's kind of tough, especially with how quickly you can be scrolling through some of these platforms. It takes a while to stand out.
That's super interesting. Because I'm doing some work with a client at the moment, and they sell like skilled worker visas, right? So if you're coming from abroad, coming to the UK, you need to fill out loads of paperwork, and no one does that job because they love paperwork. But people might do that job. To your point about the accountants, right? They don't want to talk about like the one thing that you maybe can solve for them. They want to talk about the bigger picture. So what's going to capture their attention is talking about like their business, the value on their business. It's the same with this. It's like global mobility, like the impact that it has, like, I don't know, X, Y, Z. I love when things like sync together in my head. Apologies, it's meant to be quick fire, but they were really good answers. So I'll jump to problem 3, which is, and you touched on it briefly in question 1, middle of the funnel jam. So a lot of people, it's partly because of the macro environment, but like they're struggling with nurturing. So my question to you would be like, how can you help them stay? And I guess it builds on the last question, which is quite nice. But are there any kind of ways that you like to stay top of mind? So some examples: following up with case studies, making ROI calculators. I don't know, like what. Are there any ways that you are pro for?
Yeah. So like if you're talking the middle of the funnel, I try to look at it from a couple different angles. So I mean, there's ways marketing can support it. There's ways sales can support it. And there's ways both of them can come together and kind of partner up to continue the conversation or to prompt it further. So it kind of depends, I guess, on where people are falling off. If they have the first meeting and then it loses momentum, or you're having trouble getting the first meeting, depending on where you're falling off the funnel, then you can figure out like what makes sense in order to move it forward. So like some of the resources you mentioned, like the ROI calculator, that's a really good one for like, you've had the conversation, you have a couple pieces of information about the business, maybe some financial ones that they don't have to do the ROI calculator. Maybe you can just throw in some numbers and kind of prompt the conversation that way. And so I view that as this is a pretty legitimate resource or tool that you can put in front of a prospect to kind of revalidate the offer, as well as get some potentially, like scary numbers in front of them that encourage you to take action. Like if you're telling somebody that, you're wasting, 10 hours a week on this process. And, if you were to translate that to the person's salary, like given an average salary number, here's a number that you're potentially wasting every week, every month, every quarter. You can just extrapolate it a little bit and kind of hopefully paint the need to take action because of the financial repercussion if you don't. So that's like a great resource in terms of somebody that they know what you're doing. Maybe they're just not acting very quickly, or they need kind of more fuel for selling it within their business and getting approval from their leadership. Other things are just, if you haven't even had the meeting, then like you're probably going to send different resources and nurture them differently. Like here's a report that we made that's relevant in your industry. Here is, a case study that's a company similar to yours, and here's how we help them. So things that are helpful, somewhat validate the offering, but really are just trying to get the conversation started, as opposed to that later one where like you've had the meeting, the ROI calculator helps with that, but then maybe also, one-sheeters that help really plainly explain to their leadership teams what this does, why it's important, how many people in their space are using it. If they don't use it, are they going to be disadvantaged in the market? So you can develop different resources, different pieces of content, different tools, depending on, I guess, who the eventual buyer, decision maker is, who all needs to give a stamp of approval. It's kind of hard to talk about vaguely with no like product in mind, but yeah, basically, where just look at where people are falling off. Like it goes back to that audit from the first question. It's if you can see the funnel by each channel, by each ad tactic, by each campaign, and you can see, they're falling off after the first meeting. They're never even getting to the first meeting. The proposals maybe not going as well as you need, depending on where it is, then you get a much clearer picture of what you need to support it. And that kind of helps, guide what you might want to do in terms of a content strategy as well. So super exciting to say start with an audit and just keep going back to it. But I mean, like in reality, I've done that pretty much at every role, and it immediately prioritizes what you got to do. Because it's if everybody's looking for, oh, we should do another ebook, or we should do this or that, but you can see that if you were to just improve the proposal process like slightly and close like one or two more deals with the same amount of leads that are coming in, I mean, your ad dollars are now going further. You're more efficient within the funnel, and you're not just creating something to create something. You're actually creating something that hopefully the sales team appreciates, hopefully the broader marketing team appreciates, because you can point to the impact within the conversion rates.
And for the love of God, please, not another ebook.
Yeah, or at least if you're doing an ebook, like, put them up there as blogs and keep it ungated as well. But if they want to download it, then you can ask for their info. I mean, I don't know. It's be helpful, not annoying, because no one wants to download the ebook and then get a call from the sales team. And
Oh yeah.
and it's like, no, they just downloaded something. They're just getting introduced. If the sales team is calling, like they should be calling to like send them the Spark Notes, like kind of abridged version. Here's a 1-page highlight so you don't have to read 15, 20 pages.
That's super interesting. So one thing that I'm seeing a lot of at the moment is, well, I say seeing a lot of is I've seen like two people in at the weekend as I was going over everything. They both asked, are there any softwares to turn ebooks into like videos? And I thought that was interesting because everyone always, they're kind of trying to generate all this content, but
Yeah.
like, why not add a little Botox to your existing content and
Yeah.
bring it to life in a video format?
No, I mean, that content distribution and content repurposing is like probably one of the most underutilized notions out there. Like I mean, if you've got a decent budget and an agency that's always encouraging you to do like more and more and more and create new stuff, it's really easy to fall into that trap. But yeah, like you said, an ebook, you could throw that in Chat GPT, get a summary, and load it up with like an AI avatar to do a video overview. It's like maybe it would take 10, 15 minutes. But then you've got a video that helps improve the ranking on that website. It can be shared more easily on social. People will watch 90 seconds over reading a book like pretty much all day. So yeah, definitely there's a lot of gems already within the content stack. It's just a matter of finding them and showing them off.
Absolutely. The next, that's not, I thought it was a tech question for the next one. That's the one after. So problem 4, we'll go to this first, is upselling within enterprises. So you don't know enough to ask this subject, so I'm going to let you take this one. But like from a demand gen point of view, how do you support a sales team to kind of upsell within an account maybe, or within a cluster of accounts?
I mean, like the first part is make sure there's actually like a good process for it. Depending on the maturity of the business, there might not be any like compensation incentive for sales teams to do upselling. It could be entirely focused on bringing in new business. So like there has to be an account manager or like a inside salesperson or some sort of foundation and infrastructure in place to make it successful. And that like compensation and incentives are aligned to it. So whether it's whether you've got a team that is purely dedicated on new business and one that is dedicated to growth, or you've got a mixture in terms of quota for an AE team, like 30% of your quota is upselling and here's the target for that. Spend your time accordingly. That is super important because without that, like people aren't, a typical demand gen marketer might not be viewed as a customer marketer. I mean, like you are, in essence, like they do kind of boil back to a similar thing of like, does this existing customer have a need for this additional capability, and how can I surface that awareness? That's customer marketing, but it's also demand gen. If the demand gen person is only focused on new business and they're not going to get any sort of recognition or reward for upselling, then there's a huge issue there too. So there needs to be that foundation. There needs to be a set process. Once you've got that, though, then it's just a matter of like surfacing surfacing insights that will make upsell campaigns very effective. So if you know that there is a high correlation between customers that are using like feature A and customers that are also using feature B they often are both using that, and you see this kind of trend, then like my instinct would say, okay, well, why don't we just target every customer that's using feature A and not B, or feature B and not A, and let's start there and see if that's like an easy one. So like seeing where people are getting the most value out of the total solution within the customer base can inform like where you should target and actually how you should position it too. Because, chances are they'll tell you exactly why they like using these particular feature sets because of, oh yeah, it meets this business need, this need, and this one. Well, now you've got your language in terms of upselling, and you can do it at a fairly low cost if you're just doing things like email marketing. But if you say you've got a SaaS platform and you can nudge people towards additional features within the platform, like that's also a very effective way. Like if you go on HubSpot and you want to use a feature, it tells you like exactly what tier you got to upgrade to in order to use it. But you also get an idea of actually that would be really useful. So I think it comes down to the upsell campaign can't just be like you look greedy. It has to come from somewhat of a place of sincerity of, we know this is helpful for other companies. We think it could be helpful for you. are you worth like, is it worth having a conversation? Do you want to explore it a bit further, see how it could benefit you? If it's just like, hey, everybody, we got this new feature, check it out, it only costs $20 or something, like that seems pushy, and it doesn't seem like a business partner. It seems like a vendor trying to just sell you more. So if you can make the upsell efforts really targeted to people that are going to see the value in it and not overly pushy, and definitely not something that interrupts use of the platform or whatever the service is. No one likes a pop-up, no one loves a paywall. Like you want to get, like, keep them happy with whatever they're using or the services they're getting. Don't interrupt that. Just be helpful with like mentioning something. So I don't know. That's kind of my thought.
That's phenomenal. I love that you're kind of like a no nonsense marketer. Like, again, you brought that back to like the foundations have to be in place before like marketing even get involved.
Yeah,
which is nuts. And also, have you had a sales background before? Is that like, I feel like you've got a lot of empathy. Like,
yeah. I mean, my first role out of college was sales at AT&T. So. I mean, like, I pretty quickly found that I'm not a long-term salesperson, but having been in that role and having seen like how tough a sales role is, it's like it's stressful. It's not easy. The stress gets worse if you're talking to people that are not going to buy and you're dealing with bad leads and you have a friction within the, like, between sales and marketing. Like it's not good. So I can definitely empathize with the sales team and like how decisions made by marketers or sales leadership will impact them. Especially if it's like, hey guys, sorry, there's like another manual process you got to do. It'll really help us out. It's like, I know that's gonna not go well. So
sure.
yeah. So any way the marketing team can make the sales team's lives easier, that's I think that's just a better thing to shoot for, as opposed to the classic move of just, blaming sales for things not working.
Yeah, I think it's Henry's question's coming up, but yeah, I spoke to him about that. I think every marketer should do some sales like work at some point in their life, because it just gives you the perspective.
Yeah,
Alex, I'm super sorry, we've gone over time. Are you okay? We got three
yeah.
questions.
I'm open, so we're good.
Okay, nice. So problem 5 is implementation of AI, demand gen, or just in general. Do you use like AI in your workflows? What are you seeing? Like, is there any like neat things that you're seeing at the moment that's beyond the novelty, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, like the main way I have leaned on AI in like in a new workflow would, I guess the main part is just idea generation and brainstorming. And then I also used it a good bit for sorry, what?
You're good. Yeah.
Okay. So sorry. Yeah. So
No
the main way I have been using AI is for brainstorming and like idea generation. It's really good for like, give me 10 things that CEOs are talking about related to this topic, or give me the pain points for this role in this industry dealing with this problem. The better you are at prompting, like, you can get a really good start, at least with it. I wouldn't use it for like a total end-to-end creation, but it's really good. And it's like, people always say it's like, it's much easier to edit something than it is to come up with something brand new. Even if 90% of the ideas that come out of the tool are bad, maybe there's 10% that are actually worth like continuing on and expanding on.
Yeah.
So instead of just kind of like, staring off into space during lunch and trying to think of, what all could I talk about, or where should this go, you can throw a handful of questions in there and get like get a decent idea, and at least have a little bit more direction in a starting point than maybe otherwise. And then, the other things that it's really good for are like, I want another set of eyes on this website page or on the copy. It's like, read this. What am I missing? Or like, what would improve the flow of this website? And if you tell it to think like a excellent copywriter that's had 20 years of writing experience and all that stuff, it comes back with some pretty good feedback. So that's another way. And then depending on the stage of like the marketing organization and how much like support there is in terms of writing and SEO and all that, something that I found to be time consuming, or you'd have to purchase it, was like getting SEO briefs for articles for the blogs. Yeah, now with this tool, you can plug in like, here are the keywords that I'm interested in. Here are some of the top competitors. I want to write on this topic. Can you give me all the H1, H2, H3, outline for what this would be like? And then you lean on somebody that's a really good writer to do it, to complete it. So that was a way to shave, $50, $100 off of, each article, essentially, when I was doing like a bit more of a a scrappy freelance network of writers to get stuff done. So that was a nice little thing, because you could spend an hour, generate 20 content briefs, and then depending on people's availability, just kind of start assigning them out accordingly.
For sure.
So it definitely has some great uses. I'm sure I'm only scratching the surface in terms of what all you can do. But yeah, it's one of those things that keep exploring it and keep interested, keep staying curious on it. So because I don't know, it changes every few weeks. It's and somebody else figures out some other way to lean on it, and it's going to be very quick, very easy to fall behind if you don't stay on it.
It's like it's like the world's smartest toddler. Like, it can't do anything for itself, but like if you program it the right way, it goes off and does what it needs to. Problem 6 is tracking and reporting ROI. So in terms of KPIs, or God forbid, I hate those words, just like targets, whatever, like how you report, like here's a better question. What is your biggest indicator as to whether demand gen's working well? And what is, for example, a typical CEO's idea of success? And like, how do you balance the two?
Well, I mean, ideally you see marketing attributed leads, more of them coming into the funnel, and that becoming like a predominant mix of like the closed won deals. You want contacts that are entering the CRM to actually be viable potential purchasers. So I mean, main ones I'll be looking at are, out of all the closed won deals, how many of them can I draw a really clear line back to marketing on? How many of them were influenced by marketing? So maybe they started with a sales conversation, but then my ads were to reach them, and they were to come through the website again that way. So maybe they've had cold outreach, they recognize the name, but then they come onto the website from marketing efforts. And then really breaking down that attribution across all the deals that are closing, because that's very easy to just do a rudimentary calculation of, okay, well, out of the 10 deals that were closed, 7 of them were marketing, these were the average deal size, and here's what we spent that month. And so you can get a quick money in, money out kind of a view.
Mm-hmm.
But other ones that I really look at are that contact to closed won conversion rate. So in my last role, I think it was less than 1% of contacts that were coming in that were becoming closed won deals. So there was, and it was driven from a lot of cold outbound. But when marketing ramped up and there were less contacts being added to the CRM just because you could do bulk emails and all that, and started getting a bit more refined, when I saw that contact to close won conversion rate climb well above 1% towards 5%, that's a nice. That's a nice indicator of, okay, we're getting more effective within the funnel, we're targeting people better. So that's a good North Star to keep in mind. And then kind of how many of them are becoming qualified opportunities. These are not just that an opportunity has been created for a prospect, but this is someone that is a viable purchaser of the solution. They have the budget, they've got the need for it. They have been totally qualified as a potential buyer. Seeing how many contacts go from just coming into the website or coming in by whether it's events or something else, how many of those become a qualified opportunity? Because then if I can see that number is good, so that's great in the sense that I am bringing in leads that are getting sales, good chances to close.
Mm-hmm.
If they are closing them really well, then I'm seeing them turn up in the closed won deals. But if they aren't, then then I need to pivot to, how do I help sales close these deals better? Because we know that they are a good, they could purchase it. And then, that informs just kind of what you need to do to supplement the funnel. So I guess summing it up, what percentage of the closed won deals are marketing, and how much did that bring in? How much did we spend? Total conversion rate from the top to the bottom of the funnel. And then the top of the funnel, how many are coming in and becoming have a chance to purchase it. So I'd say those are the main ones.
Solid answer. I know we're over time, but I have one question on top of that, and you're American, so you can answer it. And you're not from Vermont, because apparently it's illegal in Vermont. But billboards, you folks have them everywhere, like Better Call Saul, 1924, I don't know, whatever it is. Obviously, to track the attribution of that is near on impossible.
Yeah.
But are you pro or against traditional billboards on motorways?
I mean, so if I had the budget, I would definitely be up for experimenting with billboards. I see, for example, Ramp, the expense management solution, has a bunch of billboards around Atlanta. And I think it's just because they were, a close partner in my previous role that, it stood out. But like I see them, they're on billboards. And you also see a bunch of it in like Silicon Valley. You'll have the SaaS platforms actually have billboards and all this stuff. So, I mean, people are doing it. I think if you're going to try and get like attribution from it, that's going to be like really, really difficult. I don't know how much it would move the needle, but it's like if I had the money to spend and it was an open experiment and maybe there was an open text field that said like, how did you hear about us? Or like, where have you seen our brand recently? And some people were validating it maybe, but like, I don't know. Billboards have always been kind of like, I don't know. Maybe they cost less than I think. I think I saw like if you were to get one billboard in Times Square for like 24 hours and it showed among a rotation. It wasn't like a tremendous amount of money. I think it's more, but like I honestly, I can't remember who did it because they made a funny post about it and they said, oh yeah, we didn't tell our finance person that we were doing this and they just like went for it. But what they ended up doing was like creating a bunch of videos with them in Times Square, like pointing at it, getting people's reactions. And then that was like more of a springboard into a content play as opposed to just hoping the billboard did something. So if you're going to do billboards, I think you got to like, you either have a lot of money to plaster them up everywhere, or you got to be pretty strategic about it and use it as part of the content play.
Yeah, for sure. I guess, and yeah, you have to be lucky enough to have like some form of experimental budget to play something like that.
Yeah.
Last question, and then you're free to go. It came from Henry Clark, and he asked, what would be your perfect ABM or demand gen team setup? Bonus points for naming who would be in your team. So I guess you could merge this into two. So Chris Spellman as well, ABM manager, he actually asked who are 3 people you look up to kind of in the industry. I don't know if you've got an answer to this question. Who would be like your Navy SEAL demand gen group that you'd like to work with? And like, would you have a creative? What would you take the finance? I don't
know. Okay. So just, I guess, roles that would make a dream team, I guess. Okay. Well, like somebody, whether it's the leader of the Demand Gen team or somebody within the team, somebody's got to know how to actually like do all these ads and roll it out and be effective, whether they're leaning on, a software like metadata or something like that to, quickly roll out experiments, or they've got enough expertise where they can do it. And it's not so time consuming that they're spending only time on executing and not on like the strategy. So somebody handling that. I think product marketing has a huge play in it. I mean, like I'm a little biased because I started as product marketing, but I do see how a really good product marketer that has a close ties with the product team as well as close ties with advertising efforts could be a really good bridge in terms of like whether it's either like informing the product roadmap or content roadmap, like anything really there, because they've got the view into what the capabilities of the software is or the offering services, as well as what is the potential market for that. How many more people could you reach if you introduced a new feature or if you kind of went into a different area and diversified? So I think that's really useful. People that can write really well. So, if it's a dedicated writer, that's cool. But if you've got like nowadays, there are really good services where you can get a certain amount of articles written every month at a flat rate, and you've got a team of writers. So you don't necessarily have to have full-time employees. Beyond that, there's got to be somebody that really understands the analytics. So whether it's kind of a rev ops role or marketing ops, like building all the functionality it can take a while and it can be pretty time consuming, especially if you're trying to get really detailed with some of your campaigns. Like if you've got a really, really complicated if-then tree for like retargeting, like someone has to build that out and track it all and make sure it's accurate. So that's great. And yeah, creative partners, really. Somebody's got to create all these ads. Someone's got to help, make the website look wonderful, make sales pitches look great, all the marketing collateral cohesive and professional. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to come up with a dream team just on the spot because like there are functionalities that I know work really well, but I've been on big teams and I've been on small teams, and it's pretty amazing what you can build with a freelance network right now too. So like you don't have to have everybody as a full time, but if I was to pick like 2 or 3 people, it'd be someone doing SEO and analytics, someone helping with like the ads, someone really on top of content. And then from there, you could probably disperse out into a freelance setup. But
Nice. Is
yeah.
there one person that you'd really like to work with, or that you follow online, like you fangirl over?
No, not not really. I mean, there's a handful of people I respect their opinion. I'll read like what they're posting about, but I don't know.
It'd be a bit.
That's an interesting question because it's like someone that seems really cool on LinkedIn could be a total asshole to work with,
Oh,
and
100%. Yeah.
who
Also, it'd be a
knows?
bit weird to have a poster of them up in your room. Yeah, that'd probably be
Yeah,
a bit
yeah,
far.
yeah. Like
All right, Alex. The last.
that'd be excellent for one of these for a prank sometime. Just put like a bunch of their LinkedIn profiles on my wall and see
Oh
who
my, that's actually a great gifting play. It's like print out massive posters of you and then photoshops and send it to
just.
their house because they'll at least know who you are at that point. They'll probably be creeped out as well.
I
And
think,
the
I
last,
think you
oh
just
sorry,
stumbled on a really good ABM play. You just find your target account, send them posters, and be like, "You're dedicated sales rep" or something like that.
that see now we're cooking. Now it's taken us a bit while to warm up. Thank you so much. The last question I've got, Alex, is: do you have a question for our next guest?
Ooh,
Can be about anything really, preferably about marketing. But like we've had,
yeah,
what's your favorite book? What's your favorite event you've been to?
yeah. I guess like if a future guest has a good handle on like events and like how to incorporate a really good event strategy into the marketing playbook and
Mm,
what that looks like. I think that's an interesting area. I've got like a rough idea of how I think you can get the most out of it, but having just coordinated a handful of events this past year, like it's really time consuming. It can cost like a lot, and it's really hard to like guarantee some sort of return out of it. So I'm curious how other people are approaching events in a bit more of a creative space, and help able to justify some of the price tags that you gotta shell out if you're trying to go to some of these big ones, like the $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 tables and stuff.
eye watering.
I mean, I get that they've got a place, but I'm curious if it's more of like I don't know, an artifact of how marketing was done a little bit more heavily before social media came into play. So I guess, yeah, to sum that up, like how do you approach events and make it a successful strategy in today's environment versus, 15, 20 years ago?
For sure. I think what you said about Times Square is kind of relevant as well, isn't it? It's like they've taken the concept from the event to just put it on social anyway. So
Yeah.
like
Like
it
I
just
see
gives
that
you
as
something to speak about.
I see that as a good, like a popular strategy is they
Yeah,
go along, take a ton of photos and interview people. And then, yeah, it's great in terms of, generating more content. But, I mean, like, could you just go to the city and talk to those people outside of the event as well and not purchase a ticket? Or like, I don't know, do you really have
well, I
to?
mean, 20 grand and stuff or whatever is a lot of money. That's a lot of private one-on-one dinners. You could do 20 one-on-one dinners and take them to the Ritz or something for that money.
Yeah. I mean, like,
Um,
I'm down to go get 20 separate omakase meals at like thousands of dollars each and have a much more fun time than standing at a booth all day. Like,
for sure.
so yeah, I'm curious how, like, because yeah, I look at some of those price tags and you could do some really interesting stuff. Like, you could rent an island and fly people there and have, a fire festival that isn't a failure, and you spend just as much as you would to go to like Dreamforce.
For sure. Great question. I will include it. Alex, thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. No, thanks for having me on. This was a fun combo.